Hello, my name is Mike, and I have Tourettes Syndrome. I thought I should post a video thinking it might help anybody else who has it or anybody else to understand what it's like to have it. And basically, my story began when I was in 7th grade. I had an eye tic where I would blink my eyes hard like that once in a while, but I didn't think much of it. I didn't really do it very many times in a day, but didn't think much of it. So at some point in the middle of the year, I got strep throat. Stayed home from school a couple of days, and that's when it happened. Full-blown Tourette's Syndrome. Lots of tics, the biggest one being clicking my teeth like this, jolting my head like that. Pretty hard. Hurt my brain, hurt my neck, hurt my teeth many times during the day. It was not fun. It was, freaked me out. My parents didn't know what to think of it, and that's how it began. Later on, I met a psychologist that theorized that the strep virus actually may be linked with being a catalyst of bringing out Tourette's syndrome if you already have it in your genes. If you kind of already have it sitting dormant, it might help to release it. Anyway, I'd been home for a few days already, and I didn't want to go back to school, and my parents didn't want to bring me back to school without figuring out what was wrong with me. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I saw a few different psychologists and a neurologist who did diagnose me with Tourette's syndrome. And that was a scary time for my parents, and especially for me. When you're at that age, all you want to do is fit in. You don't want anything to make you stand out from the crowd in a negative way. And it just made things hard. When you're a teenager, you've already got all these stressors. You're trying to find out who you are. You're trying to fit in with your peers. And you got this big thing making you stand out in such a bad way. Others just didn't understand. Anyway, so after being home for a few weeks, actually 2 months I was home from school. People at school were starting to wonder where I had been, what was going on. And before I went back, I was given the option. My parents thought maybe I should go to a school that has a specific section kind of cornered off from the rest of the school for people with Tourette's syndrome, so they can all be together. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's for me. I want to be back with the people I know at school, and I want to be normal as I can. That's how I felt at the time. And so I just said, I want to go back to the school I've been going to for a couple of years now. So anyway, before I went back, the school psychologist asked me if he wanted me, or if I wanted him to go around to every single class in the school and talk about Tourette's syndrome, explain what it is, explain that other people can't catch it, that you're born with it, that it's okay to have it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It really isn't. First of all, I wanted it to be a secret. I didn't want anybody to know that I'm different in this way. But I said, okay, go for it. Tell everybody. Maybe then nobody will ask me questions. People will wonder about it. And I thought it'd be a learning experience for everybody else. And for anybody else who's suffering with this, other students at school might have more compassion and understanding. Because kids, especially that age, when they don't understand something, they get freaked out by it. It's natural. So he went around, told everybody at school, and then I came back. I didn't get asked very many questions except for, are you okay? And it was nice to hear that, but I was not okay. I had very strong tics. I had a lot of verbal tics, and where I'd go like that, clear my throat kind of a thing, but constantly. I mean, every 30 seconds, all day long. I had embarrassing moments where I would be segregated from the rest of the class because other students would complain right to me and to the teacher that I'm being distracting. Now, I don't want to be a distraction to other people, but I'm sorry, I can't help it. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed, but it was out of my control. There were times when I would pretend like I didn't have Tourette's syndrome. I would say to myself, you know, maybe if you just pretend like you don't have it, you won't have it. So I'd spend a couple of minutes pretending like I don't have any tics, I don't have Tourette's syndrome, I'm fine. I'm just normal like everybody else. And within a couple of minutes, it just built up, that urge built up to the point where I just couldn't take it, and I would tic like crazy. I'd like to take a minute and talk about some things that bring on more tics, that makes the tics more severe. Stress is a big one. I used to work at a restaurant and I was a host. I'd be standing there in a lobby full of a bunch of people waiting to get seated to eat, and I'd notice somebody look at me and they'd catch me doing one of my tics with my eyes or whatever it might be, and I'd know that they're kind of observing me. That, boom, the tics would skyrocket because I knew somebody was watching me. That would make me so nervous and embarrassed, and they would get worse and worse and worse. Stress with school, more homework, big project, a speech coming up, going up and getting in front of the class, being the center of attention with Tourette's syndrome. No, that was not fun. It's not fun for anybody, I think, to give a speech like that, for most people, but I mean, you're at the age where you're interested in girls and all that kind of stuff, and you don't want them looking at you like you're ugly or weird or mentally ill. So that was difficult. I did have kids in school that would make fun of me sometimes. They'd point and laugh or mock me a little bit. I think a lot of kids have it worse than I did, but one thing that Tourette's syndrome teaches, I think most people that have it, is compassion. I think I have a much greater compassion for other people with mental illness, with physical disabilities, all kinds of things. You understand what it feels like to be, to feel like you're flawed, even though it is not a flaw. It is not something to be ashamed of. It's paramount to keep in mind that it's okay. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean that you're not as good as everybody else. My mom would want me to watch kids on Oprah or whatever it might be that have Tourette's syndrome, but once I saw their tics, I felt this compulsion to try those out. Whoa, what's that like? And I would develop more tics and different tics, and so I never really wanted to see other people with Tourette's syndrome. That may not be the case for other people, but it was hard for me. For an analogy of what it feels like to have the urge to tic, it's stress is the most basic way I can say it. I think a good way to find out what it's like is to take a rubber band like this, put it on your hand, kind of over your thumb too, and try to move your thumb and just make a goal. You're going to have to get this rubber band off your hand without shaking it or anything, but just by moving your fingers and your thumb. And you pretty much can't do it if you get it down there right like that. So keep doing that and doing that and doing that, and it gets more and more frustrating as you go, and that's what it feels like, the buildup of tics. I'll tell you some ways that I dealt with having Tourette's syndrome. Especially in school, if you're having a bad day with tics, take a couple minutes and go to the bathroom. Don't take advantage of this with the teachers and all that, but take a couple minutes and go to the bathroom and tic your brains out. Go crazy for a couple minutes, and then take a couple deep breaths and head back to class. That might help. That helped me to just try to stay calm, to go and like a release valve. Just go to the bathroom, tic a whole bunch of times, and then head back to class. I played a lot of video games as a kid. I think that did help, more so because when I focused on something else, and like seriously focused on it, it made a big difference. I wouldn't really tic as much. whether that might be a movie or a video game or a good book. I just want to point something out. As a 33-year-old who's had Tourette's syndrome since he was a kid, for me anyway, it has gotten easier. It's gotten better. My tics have subsided a great deal since I was in middle school and high school. So, some tips on managing your Tourette's syndrome. Basically, for me, any medication that I had used as a kid, if it worked at all, if it reduced the tics at all for me, it also made me so dog tired that I could barely even function. I was falling asleep in class. It was just no good. No way to live. I think there are some pretty good ways to manage it, though, without medication. A lot of it is keeping your stress levels low. Find hobbies that you really love and just let your passions run wild with those, whether it be literature or even video games or music. I play the guitar as well, and that's been a huge help. I get that guitar in my lap and I start playing, and TS is nearly non-existent for that time. While I'm focused on learning a new guitar song or whatever it might be. It's been a huge help, music. Another thing that I found really helped was managing my meals. How much I ate throughout the day and when I ate. I think a lot of people tend to have a really large meal for dinner and maybe a smaller breakfast, smaller lunch. But I found that with Tourette's that if I ate more evenly throughout the day, that my tics wouldn't be quite as bad. If I ate just a medium-sized breakfast, had a snack in the mid-morning, medium-sized lunch, snack in the afternoon, medium-sized dinner. Just try to keep it as even as you can, because I found that if I didn't eat for a while and then ate a whole bunch, my tics would just skyrocket when my body got that intake of energy. Another thing that I think helps managing Tourette's syndrome is being open and honest with your family and your friends. I think it's important to communicate with your parents, and to make sure that your parents communicate with your teachers, and that you do as well. Don't take advantage of their generosity and kindness, but make sure that your teachers understand that this is not you being a class clown. This is not you trying to disrupt class. This is a real disorder with real effects on the body, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of. When one person gets Tourette's in a family, it's in a way the entire family gets Tourette's. They all have to deal with it. So if you're the one that has Tourette's, just keep in mind that your family and friends are having to deal with this as well. So try to be understanding and compassionate with them. They don't understand how it feels. One last thing. Don't think that because you have Tourette's syndrome, none of your dreams will come true. I've got a beautiful wife who loves me, who doesn't make a big deal out of me having Tourette's syndrome. And, sorry, that's my cat. And I've got a house, a job, friends, things are going well. And so don't think that things will never get better, because they will. Oh, one more thing. During the process of me being diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, my family discovered that the person who actually discovered Tourette's syndrome, the Gilles de la Tourette, something like that, he's French, he discovered it in the late 1800s, and he was a distant relative of mine. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. There's lots of resources online. Have a good one.